In case you're wondering, trying to run a hybrid meeting is the absolute hardest way of doing things and requires the most amount of kit to make it work. So I think the AV techs that we've had here this week have been superb, absolutely superb. And from what we hear from the people who have joined online, the online experience has been really good too, which is hard to pull off. So, but that's why we have 6 people in the room, 6 AV techs in the room. I'm just waiting for them to say I can go. Okay, we can go. All right. So welcome to the TDWG business meeting. Thank you very much for coming along. I thought it might be, just me and Dave and Stan sitting in a room by ourselves, but so that's great that you, Shelley would have been here. Okay, so thank you. So for those who don't know who we are, let's start by introducing ourselves. So throughout the conference, you've been able to identify TDWG Executive Committee members by the little flower that we wear on our lanyards. So the little flowers are made by Terry, who crochets them during executive meetings. So can the current members of the executive who are here just stand up and let everybody see your happy faces? So in orange are all the people who are here. We've got a couple of executive people who are here in Okinawa who are not physically here in the room. So I can only imagine that Sake was drunk last night. We also have a couple of exec members who've been joining online all week. So welcome Ben and Gail, who I'm pretty sure are online at the moment as well. You're struggling. Okay. All right. Well, they will be online at some point.
We're here.
So thank you very much to the executive. The executive of TDWG meets every fortnight. We do Zoom calls right around the world every fortnight. We run an executive meeting that has an east and a west. So with me as the chair and being in Australia, so the chair gets to set the times of the meetings because they've got to go to both each week. And so we do an east meeting and a west meeting 12 hours apart, approximately. I meet the people who come to the exec meeting, the East meeting rather, are mostly people in Europe and Africa, and occasionally, or some very enthusiastic people from East Coast US join that meeting as well, if they like getting up really early. And the West Coast meeting is a good time zone for all of the Americas, and Australia can actually, for the last couple of years, have been able to join both meetings. So Shelley's often come to both. And Ben, who's our Technical Architecture Group Chair, also comes to both quite regularly as well. So thank you very much for your regular attendance and participation in those meetings. The meeting times will change next year because my term finishes at the end of this year, and so Dave will be taking over as the chair from next year. So Dave, being on the west coast of the US, he will get to decide when the East and West meetings happen, the times for those. So, but we thank Terry, who is the one who organises all the meetings and makes sure that the agenda goes up, and the meetings being worldwide meetings, they're actually quite complex to arrange because the meeting time shifts all by itself every 6 months with people going on and off daylight savings. And so the meeting times move every 6 months as daylight savings changes for different people in different directions all around the world at different times, but usually within a few weeks of each other. So it's a bit of a juggle. Okay, so during the opening session, we did talk a little bit about the past year highlights. And the EU projects that we have contributed to, that TDWG has contributed to this year. So I'm just putting this slide up, but I'm not going to say very much about it because we will have Lawrence, who will come up at the end of this slide deck to talk about DISCO and what the work is related to standards and to the work going on with DISCO in DISCO transitions. So he'll come up at the very end. But what I will talk about is our collaboration, our ongoing collaboration with Pensoft and collaboration to publish the journal BIS, Biodiversity Information Science and Standards. So Gail Campmeyer, who will have corresponded with many of you, is the managing editor for our BIS journal. So in BIS, we publish the extended abstracts, or this year it's called extended abstracts. So proceedings from the conference each year get published, and we also accept long form publications as well. So that's actually quite an important part of our standards work, is actually providing an opportunity for open access publishing so that people working on standards have a place to put their work and have a place to submit what their task group might have completed, or anything that they would like to disseminate to the community. So this year we had a slightly different model for the conference presentations. So abstracts went into Oxford Abstracts. So all of the abstracts for the conference went into Oxford Abstracts, and then authors were given the opportunity to then also publish an extended abstract into BIS. I know that was a lot of work, extra work for people. The advantage of publishing in BIS is that the abstract will get a DOI. We can also link the slide deck and the video of your presentations through into the media tab of BIS. So you get quite a well-rounded, really good offering in BIS. So far for the conference, we've had 48 extended abstracts have been published now. 56 are in various stages of review, and will come, now that the conference is nearly done, we'll go back to reviewing those. 13 are in revision, so sitting with authors to do make their changes, and 11 are in draft, which we have opened up. So if you would still like to take up the opportunity of putting in an extended abstract, you still can. Where this year we're just accepting, we are still accepting, if you would like to move your conference abstract from Oxford Abstracts and into BIS and publish it in BIS, then you are very welcome to do that. So we're still accepting those abstracts. At the moment, if all of those things that I just mentioned get published, we'll have about 130 extended abstracts, which will form the official conference proceedings for this conference. All of the Oxford abstracts will remain in that system, and if you log back into them, you'll still be able to see them. We are working on how we might make them available in some form, but they won't get individual DOIs and that sort of thing, which is what you will get in BIS. This year we had one very standards related full paper that was published in BIS, and that one's the one that you can see here, which I won't read out the whole title of, but it's around Latimer core, so that has a DOI. So that's also, so we publish several papers in extended full papers in BIS. This one we've noted particularly because it's very much about standards. Okay, now, so moving on to everyone's favourite topic, the financials. I'm going to call Stan Bloom up to the stage. Stan's been acting as the treasurer. Stan's is also the return officer for the elections, for the executive election. So Stan's just going to make a couple of comments about the election for the new executive committee. So, go Stan.
Actually, it's David has been our acting treasurer, and I've been doing my usual bookkeeping, but slowly. And with the activity of the conference this year, we're late. So just a quick overview of how we're doing financially. This is our sort of cash holdings over the last few years. I think I've talked about this previously, but what happens with the conference is really what determines how our financial position changes. Some years we make a little bit of money, and rarely, but it's happened, we lose a significant chunk of money, like what happened in 2015 and actually in 2012 at the beginning of this. Those were conferences that ran at significant losses. But we're doing better. And in doing better, so to speak, we are now again, plus the fact that COVID is pretty much over, we are going to offer the Community Support Fund, which enables us to support small working groups in face-to-face meetings, and perhaps in other ways. We're open to suggestions. We're upping the amount of support. It's modest, $5,000 for any particular meeting. The call for proposals will go out again in the beginning of the year. Let's see. Oh, yes. And this is where things stand with membership. The really high individual memberships in past years was due to the fact that what we did was to say, oh, if you come to the conference, we're going to build individual membership fees into the conference registration fee. So whenever we've done that, we have a lot of individual members. When we partnered with SPNH in 2018, we didn't do that. When we partnered with everybody and their grandmothers for Biodiversity Next in 2019 with our largest conference ever, we didn't do that. When we had virtual conferences, we didn't do that. But, and we're still, we did it. No, I guess we didn't do it last year in Hobart or in Sofia. So the individual memberships have dropped off a bit because of the way we structured registration fees for the conference. But our institutional membership didn't really take too much of a hit during COVID. Thank you to all the institutional members. And I think we're steadily growing, even more for this year, which I haven't posted yet. Any questions on where we stand in sort of financial regards? Membership, anything? Thank you. All right, so typically we open nominations for open positions. We have sort of managing officers, standing committee chairs that are elected, and regional representatives for the various regions of the world that serve on the executive committee. We try to rotate about half of the executive off each year. The terms are for 2 years, so that we basically have some continuity and don't have a completely fresh slate every year. So we need a deputy chair. That's the most important one. That person sits as deputy chair for 2 years, learns the ropes if they weren't familiar with it already, and then serves as chair for 2 years. I'll do it. Okay, cool, awesome. We need somebody to follow David. And really, it seems to be about arm twisting, but should we get more than one person nominated for these positions, there will be an election. Let's see what we've got. Outreach and communications is open. Regional representatives for Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America needs to be filled, and North America. That's a lot of folks. So our rotation is a little bit off. Yeah, so if you would like to serve on the executive committee, it's a good group of people. Like Ellie said, we meet every 2 weeks and for about an hour and try to keep the business rolling. Nominations will be open soon after this. I will send out an announcement that tells you how to nominate yourself, nominate somebody else. You got to get them to agree. I mean, it's with consent, right? Everything is with consent these days. And then we will, like I said, if we have multiple people nominated for a given position, then we will hold that election towards the end of the year. Like ballots will go out in November. All members get ballots, whether you're individual or institutional. Your institutional rep will submit your ballot if you're at an institution. Okay, any questions? Deb?
I'm just echoing Cindy Parr, past chair, in saying to all of you, depending how you see yourself, you do not have to be like some standards expert guru in order to serve in these roles. So if you don't necessarily see yourself up there because you're wondering what that role is like and what kind of expertise you need to bring to the table, talk to those of us who've been in those roles. Can all the former reps raise your hand? There are former reps in here, and former presidents and former chairs and former, yeah. Come talk to us if you're curious about what that role is like and what it entails. Don't be shy. It's an opportunity to learn, and it's an opportunity to bring your expertise to the table. Say what? Ah, yeah, looks good on your CV. And you'll learn something about not only how putting these things together, but how the intersections between the kind of things standards do, what it actually accomplishes. And you get sort of the overview of that by belonging to the higher level. Yeah.
Arthur.
Just briefly, with the treasurer up there, I'd just like to acknowledge the work of the late William Hilati.
I would also say that, so it looks like we need a lot of regional representatives positions to be filled. What I've done is just, so I've just made it look as though it's vacant because that position is up available for nomination. You can re-nominate to positions. So we certainly hope that not as many of those positions are actually vacant as it looks like, because we certainly hope that some people will continue on in their role. So, okay, not looking at anyone in particular. Let's move on to Sharon.
Quick question. How long do the regional representatives serve for?
2 years. 2 years. But 2 years is the minimum term. You can re-nominate and stay in that role. Nikki.
Can I get this right? The way that the deputy chair stepping up to the chair works, that was quite a recent change, was it? Yeah, okay. Have you considered anything like that with the infrastructure and technical architecture group roles? Because they seem quite closely aligned.
They are, yes. So the infrastructure subcommittee, I don't know if it ever actually meets. It's kind of a GBIF committee that just sort of happens, is how Tim Robertson describes it. So I'm looking this way, but I'm not getting any response. So yeah, technical architecture did run that. So Nikki's a previous co-chair of the technical architecture group. So if you want to know what's involved in technical architecture, you can talk to Nikki. Ben, who is the current chair of that group, is online, and we'll get him to talk in a minute. And in between, we had Steve Baskoff, who did run that sort of mentoring model with Ben, and got Ben up to speed. Sorry, Ben, I know you can't speak for yourself right at the moment. We'll let you eventually. And so now Ben's taken over, and Steve has retired. So yes, but I think certainly with the technical architecture group and infrastructure, I think they've definitely, and we have talked about whether infrastructure and the technical architecture group should just be one subcommittee. So I think that's one of the things that we might discuss, or that committee might discuss further in the coming months. Okay, moving on. All right, so functional subcommittees. So there's a number of standing functional subcommittees. Some of the representatives are, the chairs of those functional subcommittees are here, and we'll invite those who are here, to come up and just give their report briefly. And the first person that we'll ask to come up is the Time and Place Subcommittee, which is headed up currently by Kit Lewis. Time and Place is all about the conference prep and the conference preparation. So where will we go next? You may well ask, and Kit might not tell you.
Cool. So we do, so I'm the current chair, but a lot of work, I didn't start until January, so a lot of work was done before me. So current goals, relationship building, which I think we're doing pretty well at. The executive committee might say something else, but I think we're doing really well. Achieving signed paperwork for 2026 conference by Q1. of 2025. So that is slated for Norway. No paperwork is signed, and my rule is don't tell people something is happening until paperwork is signed. So that is on the docket. And then initial outreach and solid idea for 2027 in North America. We're looking at Boulder, Colorado, potential collaboration with NEON, which is the National Ecological Observatory Network. The main team is based in Boulder. Part of the team is based in Arizona. So if you're confused on that, they are both places, because I was confused by that when someone told me that NEON existed where I lived. I was like, no, it doesn't. It's in Arizona. Other work includes participation in Convention Bureau and business tourism and information sessions. So Norway, France, meetings, show UK online, Austria roundtables of the Union of International Associations, mostly in Brussels, because it's close to the EU headquarters. And we are already starting brainstorming ideas for 2028. And I love to outsource work. So if anybody has any ideas or connections for 2028, please feel free to reach out to me. But yeah, that's, is there? Oh, sorry. Underway. Dados Vivos for 2025. Quadruple, yes, that's right, quadruple event. You'll hear more about that today. So opportunity was created at the GBIF GB30 meeting where Tim Hirsch issued a challenge for Tadwig and GeoBond to work together. Chandra Earl, North American rep, was very instrumental in initial contact while acting for time and place chair before I got on. An ongoing meeting and committee organization is being facilitated by me, but also a lot by David Bloom and Ellie Wallis. So, okay, now do you want me to just introduce the next person? Okay, cool. So next up, we have Fundraising and Partnerships Subcommittee, who is currently being chaired by Patricia Murgan and was previously by Connie Ronaldo. So, well, sorry, I was in presentation
Yeah, so thank you, Kit, for your nice presentation and to introduce me. As she explained, I have been on the Time and Place Committee until end of last year, and I only changed beginning of this year to this subcommittee on fundraising and partnership, which was sadly vacant when Connie left us a few years ago, and looking at, of course, the need of keeping in contact with our partners and finding funding is always a key point. And as this is part of my work in the institutions, I decided to try to chair this committee. And it restarted more or less just in January 24. Currently, the work was surely to look what was the status of the group, making a bit the tour of our partners and stakeholders, and identify the different financial needs of both Tadwig as an executive association, but also of all our interest and working groups. For the moment, due to heavy agendas of everyone, we had quite a few bilateral meetings, and notably outreach with GBIF Catalogue of Life, Biodiversity Heritage Library, Research Data Islands, the International eDNR Standardization Group we spoke of during the sessions also we had about DNA and so on in this conference that we need to collaborate. It's also linked to all these ESO discussions. And of course also with the research infrastructures like DISCO, LifeWatch, Alex here, of course with Pensoft, with CITAF and many more. We can't invite, like we did in the past, stakeholders to our executive meetings on regular basis because there are simply too many. But we can invite them like for 15 or half an hour to come explain to us on appointment in the executive meeting that happened with some already, so that we can discuss with everyone the needs and how we can better collaborate. And I'm also planning to have like a meeting of our stakeholders and partners that we could meet in a group more regularly, like every 3 or 4 months, how we can make it, but continue the bilateral meetings. And if you are interested for the stakeholder part, you are very welcome, especially as my experience is more European, to have input from people from the other continents. For the fundraising part, the money, here also I'm more experienced at EU level, and I helped a bit also with financing and reporting and everything with the EU projects, and so that we can still function in the EU portal and so on, and be present in new upcoming EU projects with our partners. I also worked a bit on identifying funding sources for our participants to come here and have grants, and a bit revive that we can have grants for people of developing country or simply institution needing support, even if they are not in developing country, because everything becomes expensive. And here also I would be very happy to have input, especially from people who can help to identify those funding sources in other continents than Europe. I know some of them, but of course in less detail. So everybody is really welcome to help out for these important needs for TEDWG and our sister associations. So that's it. And then I pass to the next person for the outreach and communication, which you will do, because Marijke is not with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pat. So the Outreach and Communication Functional Subcommittee is chaired by Marijke Petersen, who is at the Museum for Naturkunde in Berlin. Time zone shifting means that it's the middle of the night in Europe at the moment, so Marijke isn't joining us online. So the committee the Outreach and Communication committee has been taking a lead on the strategic planning for TDWG. And we've been working slowly through a number of ideas and trying to formulate what we might do differently, but we won't tell you about that just yet. The Outreach and Communication Committee also facilitates all of the social media, including the blog posts, so other social media, and did quite a large piece of work on updating the logo a couple of years ago. So that committee is a very important committee to TDWG. Marijke has had some job changes and things, which has made the committee slightly less busy this year than it has been in the past, but is always needing extra people who can be willing to be on that subcommittee. So if you would like to join, please do. Okay, technical architecture. Now this is where we need to get Ben online, if we can, onto the screen. So Ben is our chair of the Technical Architecture Group and took over recently, and here he is. Hi, Ben.
How's it going, everybody? Did that slide?
Can we see the slide and Ben's face at the same time? There we go. And can we have, yeah, okay. How's that, Ben? If you just present, we can't see you at the moment, but you can see the slide.
That's okay. That's right. All right. So the Technical Architecture Group. So we've had a couple of meetings this year. One thing we tried to do, and I've sort of taken a sort of a different approach to some of these things, is provide more of a consultancy role. And so MIDS is a great example of that. They came to the tag and they did a presentation. I think we met for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and they walked through everything. And then we identified a whole series of things to think about and questions we asked that from a real technical perspective. And now they're sort of trying to figure out, where we go the next steps. And so I think it was a really good, they made a lot of advancements just with that hour and a half meeting when we targeted it to certain technical topics. And so my goal is to sort of keep that ball rolling. I know OpenDS, their model just came out, and I need to contact them. I'm sure there are people in the audience that are contributors to that. So you'll be getting an email from me soon. And then with Latimer Core, we did too. So a lot of the issue with tag, we have these big things we'd like to do, standardized complex values and a lot of these technical topics. There's always an issue of time. How much time can people devote to these things? And so I've had a little bit of trouble sort of navigating that path. And I think this sort of targeted, so you don't necessarily have regular meetings, you're more targeted to specific needs by specific efforts that are currently ongoing. And I think that's working. It's just about finding where those things are and moving things along. And later this year, I think we'll have 3 more meetings this year. If you're interested in joining, please let me know. There's still some spaces available for that kind of thing. And so I think that's about it. We just, yeah, I think that's about it.
Got another slide, Ben.
We
There
do.
you go.
Was this me? Oh, this is statistics for Tadwick standards. I think is this you?
Oh, I think you made this one, didn't you? Because I didn't.
I
It's a mystery slide.
Well, actually, this is actually a good point though. So the mineralogy extension is later this year, and we pivoted to where we thought it would be an extension of Darwin Core, and it's not. And so what it looks like, it's going to be a vocabulary enhancement, and there's a whole lot of reasons there of why this would work out. But that's another topic I think we'd like to sort of, this pathway, this happened with MIDS too, the pathway to ratification is not this sort of straight line, right? There are branches to it. And so understanding those branches, and not only us understanding, but also informing people about those branches as much as possible, so we can lower the bar for entry and lower the bar for progress going forward with different efforts. So that's the priority of the group, I think, for the rest of the year. I did not create this slide though. It's a nice slide.
Okay, let's see Ben again. Now, does anyone have any questions about any of the functional subcommittee reports? Arthur?
Ben, I was wondering if you could explain MIDS to people that may not know what that is.
Well, Ben, don't feel like you have to explain it very carefully, because Elspeth is going to stand up and give us a presentation in a couple of minutes.
Yes, I will defer to her.
Any other questions?
We have had some infrastructure committee meetings in the last year, perhaps not as many as some of the other committees. And I didn't discuss this with Tim, who's the chair, but I can make up some report on the spot. GBIF is continuing to provide
Do you want to come up here?
I can do that.
Because then Ben can see you.
Hello, I'm Matthew from GBIF, in case you haven't met me this week. GBIF is going to continue to provide server hosting and technical infrastructure for Tadwig. Some years ago, we moved a lot of things into cloud-hosted systems like GitHub. This is still, as far as we're concerned, working fine. Recent work or discussions is that Steve Baskow did quite a lot of work for us maintaining the machine-readable standards. That's at rs.tadwig.org. He's retired or retiring, so that work should be taken on by new people, so me. Part of that is my intention is that we make that a little easier to understand, so the process is more obvious. It's still an important thing that needs some one or two people to be in control of this. It's our foundation of the standards, but it's a little opaque at the moment. And I'd also like to see us work on translating the standards. We discussed this at length last year, and there's been a little bit of progress based on GBIF's experience using a external platform, Crowdin, to do the translations, but we don't have that much to show for it just yet. Any questions? Yeah.
Translation sounds really important, but it also is a bit of a surprise that it's an infrastructure task. Is that a gap in the way the committee's set up? That's probably a question for Ellie or David.
Probably. I think the infrastructure, we're looking at it because we're maintaining the machine-readable standard information, and that's naturally where translations of it will end up.
That's where they began too, right? I mean, you have to have the IRIs and certain technical infrastructure enabled to allow that to happen. I don't think the infrastructure team's going to do the translations, right? But it sort of like begins and ends with that infrastructure. And I will say something about the infrastructure too. Sometimes I think the infrastructure team, when nothing goes wrong, that's a good thing. It's kind of like they're doing their job and they're doing a lot of things when things are running smoothly. It's when things start to fall apart. And so sometimes it goes under the radar a little bit, but I do know that the infrastructure around GitHub and the workflows, things are really strong and really well done. And we owe them a lot of appreciation for GBIF helping us out with that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I want to second that. I want to give you a big hand for when things don't work, then I go to Matt, and he's very responsive, and he's bailed me out I don't know how many times. So much appreciated.
Yeah, I support that entirely. My point was that translation probably flows through or localization and things being available in many different languages flows through a lot of responsibilities across the committee, and maybe we should be more explicit about that.
Sounds a good idea to me.
Yeah. That does sound like a very good idea, Nikki. So yeah, we'll take that back to the executive and have a think about how we might do it and where we would locate that work. Yep. Okay, Ben, we might please stay with us, but we might turn. Your face is very big on the screen at the moment. We might go back to the slides again.
Please.
Okay, and let's move on to some reports from the interest groups, working groups, task groups. Okay, so past year we've had some highlights. We've had some new task groups formed under the Darwin Core Maintenance Group. So there's a sensitive species extension. Liang, I don't know if is here. Liang Reisahove is going to be leading that one. No, not sensitive species. Liang is leading invasive species, and Tanya Laity and Cam Slatcher will be leading the sensitive species extension. Both of those came out of enthusiasm generated at the TDWG conference last year in Hobart. Breaking news: there's a new task group on realm and biome has been proposed. Immediately, there's been a bit of discussion about whether realm and biome are words that make sense. So that task group name may not stay that name for very long. Conference breaking news that I have just included. Miwa's here. So Miwa Takahashi, who's here with us, has already formed a group looking at environmental samples and eDNA. There was already a task group in existence, but had not been active for a number of years for various reasons. And so Miwa is going to reconvene that task group and get it going again, because eDNA is definitely a topic that's very much what we're needing to look at, and what GBIF are certainly looking at, and the Atlas of Living Australia are looking at as well. So Miwa's already got a group of about 25 people who are working with her, and so we're very much looking forward to helping you get that task group underway and getting it going. So the working groups and interest groups, we've sort of moved to a model where they have a one big organised set of online meetings, which were held in February, March this year, and we'll do that again next year. We'll organise one big set of virtual meetings for all of those working groups and task groups and interest groups. So Ben pretty much organised it on his own last year. Steve Baskow organised it the year before. So we're seeking some volunteers to help organise the next one. It's managing a bunch of Zoom rooms around the clock as people meet in all sorts of different time zones. So please come and let us know if you would like to help convene that. Stan's volunteering already. No, he's not really.
No, I just want to explain that this is in some ways a public outreach from each of the task groups or interest groups to explain what's going on, opportunities for participation, etc. There are lots of meetings, monthly or something like that in each of these groups that take place during the year, but it's kind of like, the drumbeat of regular progress and work proceeding. This sort of everybody clustering in this 1 week of organized sessions is more like a public outreach to expose what is going on. Ask for participation.
Okay, the other highlights. So we've had a couple of standards that have been ratified. The Humboldt extension to Darwin Core has been ratified this year, as has Latimer Core, and there've been some great sessions, particularly on Latimer Core at the conference here. So, and I encourage you to catch up with the videos if you didn't get to see those ones. The videos are all up online now. If you go into your Oxford Abstracts, if you log in through Oxford Abstracts and go into the program, every single session now has a link to the video. Which is now, it's all up there. So hat tip and thank you very much. So Gail and I have been tag teaming to get those videos up for you. Gail's been working back in Illinois, taking advantage of the time zones. So Gail's been time coding all the videos so you can jump more easily to the speaker that you're interested in, and has also been chopping them a little bit so that they start at the start, not start at 15 minutes before the presentation starts. So thank you very much, Gail, who I think is online too. We've got some standards in review or coming up to seeking ratification. So the minimum information for the digital specimen, MIDS, and we'll hear from Elspeth in a minute. And Plenty and Core has also gone into review as well, and Paco will come and tell us a little bit about that. The working group, the Biodiversity Data Quality Working Group met in Seattle to finalise vocabularies, and Arthur will come and tell us a little bit about that. Okay, so the Humboldt extension, Janina is not here, and again in Europe, so fast asleep. So I'm not going to read out that whole slide for you. The slide will be available on the recording, so you can pause it and read all of the detail there. But the task group is now dissolved and has referred back to the Darwin Core Maintenance Group for ongoing work. Okay, MIDS. So I'd like to invite Elspeth to come and tell us a little bit about what MIDS is up to.
Super. Yes, thank you. MIDS, we've been doing a lot. We've been pretty active, and I'd like to start by really thanking a team of people working on MIDS. I always seem to be kind of standing up here talking about it, so people can often connect it to me, but it's a big team and it's a fantastic team working on this. We've got Kat Chapman, who wasn't able to join us physically, but she's been super supporting as a co-convener. And yeah, some of the people in the team have been coming every week religiously or just when they're able to join, so thank you. And there is a MIDS mailing list, and that's probably the best way to get involved and we're really looking for more people to get involved. It is active, we're doing a lot of stuff, so if people want to get involved, that would be fantastic. The easiest way, I think, is to just join the mailing list, and then you can find out about the meetings. So we're going to explore the various parts of MIDS, and what you can also do is try out the implementations. I gave a talk, you may have not seen that yesterday, but we do have implementations. They're available to trial, so I'll put some links here as well. And they're already proving to be really useful. And the one focus that we're moving on to now, the biological part of MIDS, I think is becoming fairly good. The geological and paleo specimens is the area I think that we're really looking at next to really get it up and running. So if you are in those communities, please get in touch. We're looking for data sets in particular that we can test out implementations on. So that would be really cool. I'm getting my glasses for my notes, sorry. I also wanted to say that we are also following in the very impressive footsteps of Latimer Core. Latimer Core have been fantastic for us. They've created some really good resources and things, and we're becoming aligned with those. In other words, we're copying them. So it's great. Thank you. So we're developing similar resources for the framework, hopefully enabling people to access the information that they need to kind of understand and implement MIDS. I just wanted a quick thing on current status. So as we've heard, we're entering the ratification process. So we have a kind of reviewer. Am I allowed to say? Excellent. So that is Matt Woodburn at the Natural History Museum. So thank you. But we are also going to be looking for additional expert reviewers. So if anyone's got suggestions for other people, feel free to get in touch with those, and offers from yourselves as well. So it'd be really good to get some ideas for expert reviewers. So MIDS itself is actually relatively straightforward conceptually. Some of the implementation is providing some interesting theoretical and practical discussion. But the aim is always going to be that for the user, we want to keep it as straightforward and simple to use as possible. So we are in the process of creating the normative part of the structure, the rules bit. And that it's going to need a clear protocol for maintenance and updates as well. So this is, some of this will fit into the existing TDWG standard structure. Some of it may require new concepts, and that's the kind of challenging part that we have ahead of us. But what we've got, we have the MIDS levels in terms of kind of structure. We've got the MIDS levels. We've got the information elements. We've got the mapping so far in place for the mapping, the SSSOM mapping for biology, Darwin Core, and for biology, ABCD. In terms of other things that we've worked on and we've got in place, we've got the MIDS calculator that was developed by Matthias Dillon and his team at the Botanic Garden in Mesa. And there's a link to that here. It's fantastic. As I mentioned in my talk, you can define your own data sets from GBIF and download it as a Darwin Core archive and run it through here. So it works really well. I'm not the most technical person in the world. I was able to use it all by myself. So it's great. The MIDS checker is the one that Josh has developed at the Natural History Museum. Uses the GBIF API, so that's really nice. So we've got those two things in place now. The MIDS checkers, you just essentially select your data set in GBIF and click a button. It's super easy to use as well. So those kind of tools are what people need if we're going to be seeing MIDS actually being applied in the community. We've got a draft website. It's going to be a similar format to the Latimer Core. I've not put it's not yet on the MIDS space in TDWG. It's at the moment in the Discotheque environment, so I've not put a link to that here, but if you want a link to look at it, let me know and I can send that through. It's just being drafted at the moment. And we've got a wiki. That's going to be really for the informative part, and following Latimer Core, they developed this informative wiki to help people as well. So I think that's kind of a structure that we're looking at. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Any questions for Elspeth? I think you're off the hook. Okay, so the next task group that we'll have hear from is, I'll invite Paco Panda to come and tell us a little bit about progress with Plinian Core.
So, well, Plinian Core has been on development for a long time now. And finally, we put it up to the executive committee of TDWG at the end of last year or beginning of this, and is now entering the final phase for approval. Reviewer coordinator was appointed, Javier Molina from Atlas Live in Australia, and also we are counting on the support by Ben Norton and Stan Bloom in this task. And also we are resourcing to Steve Vasco for some details. So we expect to have everything in place before the end of the year and be ready for project review. And with this, I move to the They do that? Okay, then with a different hat. The World Geographic Scheme for recording plant species has been a TDWG standard since the end of last century. It had a second edition in 2001, and is the most used TDWG standard after Darwin Core. After 20 years, it was felt that the need for updating and expanding it not only to plants on the terrestrial domain, but also to all species, and also to cover the marine environment. So an interest group was set up, and 2 task groups was put in place, one to take care for the schema in the marine domain and other in the terrestrial domain. Well, in this task, I'm not alone. There is a group of people, to mention here, Serge Ngofas and Nicolas Bailly, mostly in charge of the marine domain, and also Thierry Ung is also a convener of these groups. Oops, yes. So first on the marine task groups, basically all the heavy lifting work has been done. It's worth mentioning here that this schema is a combination of biogeographic features or priorities and also administrative boundaries, as to serve as a way to provide information at national or other administration levels. So the marine environment has divided that domain into the coastal areas. So those are the areas in which the countries has some control, and for that the schema follows the administrative divisions of the countries, and then the high seas, in which schemas used by the community has been also followed. As I said, the heavy lifting work is done, and well, I will move to the terrestrial domain just to see how we. That one, okay. So, with the terrestrial domain, we have a good starting point, which was the 2001 standard, and for that we review the units. We modernize the standard in terms of format identifiers and expanding it to cover not only plants, and also to keep it compatible with the work of the marine domain group. Again, the heavy lift work is done. And basically, what we have ahead is first to coordinate the work of the 2 task groups and to put a unified schema in machine-readable form. And that is happening as we speak. And in fact, last night I got a message from Steve Vasco as to what steps to follow to put it in that form. So we expect to have everything ready for submitting to the executive committee again before the end of the year. And this is all I wanted to say. If you have questions.
Hello. Thank you for your presentation. I was just wondering how it articulates with the new biomes and realms group, task group that's just been announced. There are some links between the two task groups.
Well, I assume that the two schemas are area-based, but otherwise they are different. In the geographical schema, the divisions are administrative borders.
Okay.
So it's not only biogeographical, it has a combination. The idea is, with this schema, which I said is very much used, is to be able to produce national lists or information and to compare different administrative areas. So it's a combination of the two concepts, the biogeographical ideas and then the administrative borders.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad to see this, Paco. It's a daunting task. I just wanted to ask, are you also going to update the shape files that go with these?
We are discussing that at the moment because, well, as everybody knows, it's an scale connected issue. Depending on the scale, the shape files or the shapes that you get might work or might not. So we are discussing how to provide that information at this moment.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paco. Okay, as I mentioned, the biodiversity data quality interest group which has got up to 4 active task groups, has recently met in Seattle. And I will ask Arthur Chapman to come up and tell us a little bit about their meeting. Thanks, Arthur.
Thanks, Ellie. I'm Arthur Chapman. I'm convener of the Data Quality Interest Group. And as Ellie mentioned, there are 4 task groups under that, and I'll mention those shortly. But first of all, I'd like to thank the executive for supporting the group to meet in Seattle 2 weeks ago. There's 4 of us basically working on the task group to develop a new standard, which I'll mention in a minute. John Majoric from Argentina, Paul Morris from Boston in the US, Lee Belbin from Tasmania, and myself. And we also have Ming, who is from Belgium and has been working with us online. So we met in Seattle to complete the work to develop a new data quality standard, which we are calling BDQ Core, standing for Biodiversity Data Quality Core, but we've abbreviated it to BDQ Core. We worked very hard, and I'd like to say that having that meeting was very important. I worked out that it was probably equivalent to having 60 Zooms, and we would not be able to do the same work without face-to-face. So Zoom, even 60 Zoom meetings would not work and get as far as that we have. We're very close to finishing the, get down here. No. Did we have we had a couple of ones for the task groups? Lee sent them in. I don't know that I've got the latest ones. Okay, I'll do it on. We had basically the 4 task groups. The first task group was on a framework for data quality. That has been now closed, that task group, and there's a link on our wiki to the final report, but that was setting up a big framework, and that was published as a paper, and that a lot of people are using it. We're getting a lot of hits and reads on ResearchGate, and that sets up a whole framework for data quality. It's very technical. The second task group is on developing tests and assertions. and that's the one that's working at the moment. A third task group was on use cases, and that has also been closed now because that developed use cases, and that then fed into task group 2 on the tests and assertions, and the results of the framework for the task group 2 is framing the tests and assertions under the framework, and that's all that work fits into 2 as well. There is a fourth task group, which is fairly dormant at the moment on vocabularies and setting up the system for doing vocabularies, run by Paula Zamoglio. She's off busy on other things. She may be looking, contact Paula if you're interested, because she may be looking for a new convener for that to at least help her with the final bits. So our work in Seattle was to try and finalise the standard. We've put all the data in, all the information, all the tests and everything are on the GitHub. So what we're now doing is putting all that information and linking it into the formal TDWG standard format. It's all now into a review directory under TG2 on the GitHub, and that's where all the documents are doing, the headers and footers are being done and all that sort of stuff. But most of it is sitting away in CSV files, all the vocabularies and all the tests and everything else, and that will be pulled in programmatically into these final files. And we're working on that at the moment and getting very close. The most difficult one is the ontology of the framework, which is an OWL document, and trying to convert that back into the documents for the standard has not been easy, but I think by this morning I had a message from Paul that he's pretty well finished working on that and got that working, but we've just got to check the wordings are consistent and things like that. There are between 4 and 6 other namespaces that we've also got vocabularies for that we need to link into their right places. I say 4 to 6 because we're trying to work out whether we can merge 2 of them into one of the others to reduce the amount of work, but we've got to think about that. What happens with the tests? There are 208 tests, 104 on single records and 104 multi-record tests. So the single record test is the one we've done all the work. The others are measures that virtually count how successful everything is. Yeah, you've run 5,000 records through, and you've got 4,600 of the compliant, etc. So you run your amendments. So the tests are validations, amendments, issues, and measures. So the validations, you run the validations on, as I said, there are 104 of the tests. You run your validations, and that'll say it's compliant or not compliant. You can take the non-compliant ones and run them through amendments, which will propose an amendment if it goes out to a vocabulary and says, oh, I can see something that looks similar to that and it's a synonym in this vocabulary, we can propose an amendment. You can then choose those amendments and run your validations again, and you hopefully get a better result from your validations. So we have an implementation system. It's all been implemented into the MCZ database in Boston as a quality control tool. So every test has been tested and run. For implementing, we've got it so the specifications are designed to be implemented into any database system. It's all agnostic as to your database. It doesn't matter what sort of database you're using. The test should be able to built into that using the specifications. Then we have a second huge big database of about 1,300 rows, which is examples from the tests, passes and fails, and some edge cases. So if you install implement the tests into your database, you can run it against this validation database, and hopefully it'll pass them. Well, it'll pass the ones it's supposed to and fail the ones it's supposed to, so that you can see if it's working perfectly. So that hopefully will work, and that's all now. And we've got all the tests running against those tests. That took a lot of work to get up. So the standard that we're developing follows along the lines of Darwin Core largely. So it'll have an implementer's guide. It'll have a user's guide, which will be basically how do you deal with the reports out of the tests. It'll have a quick reference guide, which we expect to be the most accessed one, like the quick reference guide in Darwin Core. It'll have references, and there are a lot of some other documents that probably won't, or some of them may form part of the standard, but some will be outside the standard. When we did this, there are another 98 tests that we didn't put into the standard. Now, some of these are supplemental. We didn't implement them for a whole lot of reasons. That it was too difficult, or we thought it would produce 99% would be wrong or errors, not compliant, so it's not worth doing it. It doesn't make sense. So there's 65 of those. There's 13 that are incomplete or immature. Now, a lot of those are because there are no vocabularies available. And I've been talking to Cecily this week from GBIF on the priorities for some new vocabularies that we need developed so that these can be later added in. And then we have do not implement tests. These are ones that no matter how you go about it, if you try and implement that test, you're going to get completely misled, and it'll cause real problems trying to implement those. So we have those as big, I don't know, red, bold, do not implement these tests. And there are 19 of those, 13 immature. So we're at the stage of finally writing up, just doing some of the coding to get all this stuff into the right places, just editing the headers and footers and making sure we spell all the words right, and hopefully we'll submit it for review before the end of this year. One thing we're looking for is a review manager that we can recommend to the executive. So if you know of somebody that's been implementing some of the tests, they're out there, they're on GitHub, you can implement them now, that's been implementing some or has a really strong interest in that, then come and see me or tell one of the executives that they'd make a good review manager. We have a few names in our mind. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have a standard submitted called BDQ Core. We hope you all implement it into your databases and talk to Specify and other software to build it into their systems at the start. So you don't have to worry about it. It'll be built into the systems.
Okay, we're nearly there. Now, there's a few more slides which I'm going to skip through so that we've got time for one last presentation. We will come back to them if we have time. So Ben, hang in there. David Fichtmüller is also submitted a couple of slides about work that they've been doing in Europe, again, asleep. so we will come back to those if we have time. Otherwise, the slides are there, and you can read them and have a look at them and follow the links later. But what I would like to do now is, so the next phase of DISCO is very much has some standards work as part of it. So I'd like to introduce Lawrence Livermore, who's just going to give us an update on where DISCO, the next bit, is up to. Thanks, Lawrence.
Hey everyone, so I'll keep this short so we can get to lunch fairly quickly, but as DISCO's, as TDWG's European rep, I wanted to give you a quick update on where DISCO is at. It's been an exciting couple of years, and it's been great to see some of the outputs from DISCO-linked projects in TDWG over this week, so Synthesis, Mobilise and iStig. But for those of you that probably not many have not come across DISCO, so the Distributed System of Scientific Collections. So this is the biggest formal grouping of natural history collections coming together. So we're now over 195 European institutions across 23 countries with a shared common vision. And the idea is that we will work together as a single digital infrastructure to provide physical and virtual access to our data, facilities and expertise. So building very much on the kind of model that we had in Synthesis, if you know that program. And that is providing state-of-the-art user services, digitization on demand, machine annotation. Hopefully you saw some of Naturalis's talks on that this week. I'm quite excited about that. Yeah, so that's kind of DISCO's aim and ambition. And kind of thinking about the kind of current model of access in Europe. So it's fairly fragmented. It's quite challenging for us to provide physical access, which is still pretty important in how we're kind of working with natural history collections. And moving towards an integrated formal research infrastructure model. So the European Union has specific funding and legal setups for ERICs, and this is what we're kind of moving towards. So DISCO is heavily involved in standards development. What we're working towards is the concept and the implementation of a digital extended specimen that we're kind of, again, some talks on this week, and that standard has been circulated for comment. So if any of you are interested in that, please take a look. We'd be very keen on your feedback. And that really is the idea of having a much richer specimen, and again, with a DOI as well. So specimens on their own are very citable and can be annotated and are much more dynamic, and both readable by humans and machines, and thinking very much now about the impact of AI on our work and how we're going to be working with these massive digital collections of specimens, not in the millions now. So where is DISCO at? So previously we had DISCO Prepare, and I think a few of you are aware of some of the outputs, and many of you worked on that. We're currently in DISCO Transition, so this is our transitionary project, engaging and consolidating both in technology and the organizations that are participating in DISCO. And then after that, we move into the formal ERIC phase, which is the construct and build phase, which is super exciting. With DISCO Transition, there's a lot of formal process that we need to do. We're working a lot with the national nodes across Europe, and it's pretty exciting for us in the UK. I'll briefly talk about some of the UK bits in the next slide, and some of the core services like the annotation services. I'm here, and Matt's involvement in MIDS is largely down to DISCO Transition. So DISCO Transition is supporting a lot of our engagement in standards development. And I'm very keen from a Latimer Core perspective. So if any of you have seen Latimer Core and are interested in using it, when I get back home, which will be in October, I would love to talk to you about any ideas you have with implementation. So DISCO Transition can support workshops, and helping folk think about how they might implement Latimer Core, or at least think about how they want to use it. So please, please do get in touch, and really looking forward to working with you on those data standards. So for us in the UK, it was really exciting. So in March this year, we had a big national announcement for allocated funding. So we've not got the funding yet, but £155 million to support national digitisation across the UK. So going a fair way towards digitising the roughly 140 million natural history specimens across the UK. So this is planned as a decadal programme. We still have 2 formal processes to go through to get that money, but it has been pre-allocated to our national, from our research councils. So that is really exciting. And I think Disco as a brand and a concept has really helped a lot of the national nodes make the case for this kind of national approach to digitisation. So we're very thankful for Disco for that. And again, it's not just in the UK. We've seen a lot of node development across Germany, Belgium, recently Greece as well. So I think Disco and Spain, so it's really kind of helping us coalesce across Europe. So we can, if you go to disco.tech, you can see a number of the core e-services that are in development. A lot of the demo sessions are available there, so there's been a couple of talks this week. But we're really thinking about how we can do machine-based enhancement of specimen records and do annotations. Klaus Wayland, who I don't know if he's in the audience today, but he is leading on that work package in Disco Transition. And you can also talk to Wouter, who's in the corner over there, if you're interested about some of the e-services development. So one of the kind of key concepts is the unified curation and annotation system. So again, if you're interested in having a look at that, that's sandbox.disco.tech. And we've also got Elvis, which is in development by our colleagues at the Natural History Museum in Paris. So the idea of a kind of common portal to request digitization across multiple institutes, and in the future, physical access to facilities across multiple institutions as well. Again, this is kind of Latimer Core, but one of the key things that we need to do if we're going to do strategic programs and think about digitization is have a common dashboard on the state of our collections across Europe. We're intending on using Latimer Core to kind of gather that data and provide a high-level entry point above the specimen level to understand our collective holdings. And that's it. Thank you.
Questions about Disco for Lawrence or Wouter? Deb?
When you showed the synthesis slides about the transnational access, both virtual and in person,
I wasn't planning to. So synthesis is over
yes,
now.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
So were you alluding that there'll be that kind of service in the future, though? Is that what you were saying?
Yes, that's what we're hoping for. And certainly in Disco UK, we're hoping to do something similar nationally. So I think quite a lot of us are very interested in how we can move what I think was a very successful and popular model for kind of accessing natural history collections as a research infrastructure.
So it made me wonder, and I wasn't sure whether you heard my talk, but I was trying to say that being strategic about, instead of the opportunistic visitation of a collection by a collection manager, doing something very similar. So I was wondering if there's an opportunity to build that. If that funding is going to be sought, can it be expanded to include that concept? So for the researcher, yes. For the collection manager, too. Same kind of idea.
We're certainly thinking about that kind of approach in Disco UK, so I can talk more authoritatively on how we're doing that.
Yeah.
I think when we get to the construct phase in Disco, we'll have a kind of better idea about how we're doing some of the people-based operations. But certainly, you know, for digitizing 140 million specimens across like 100 institutions, we're going to have to do quite a lot of staff exchange to build that expertise.
Yeah. So for those of you who didn't see that or don't know the model, it was to fund researchers to have either digital access to get something made accessible for them or money so they could get to the collections. Collection managers, just like all of us, we learn when we visit another collection other than our own. So how do we make that a very strategic thing that we offer the people who do this kind of work the ability to do? Not only does this benefit the individual then, this benefits the institutions themselves, and this fosters this culture change idea, right? This exchange of information and how other operations work gives us the ability to grow our community. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I'd add to that, I think it was great to see the talk from the Smithsonian yesterday, sharing some of those online policies. And so I would say from collections management, there's a lot of things that would be really great to publish. Dean, I'm hoping that you'll publish some of your digitization work as well. So having access to rate data and things like that are really important in kind of thinking about how we do like large scale operations. So please, please, please share your project data, share policies, share like your decision making in institutions. That's the kind of thing that really makes these big infrastructure projects possible, as well as the people.
And if you're not sure where to share, ask us.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to the end of our formal presentations for today. So I think I can see there's people already have got bento boxes outside, so outrageous. Come to the meeting. So I hope you will, so we've got a slightly shorter lunch break today. It's just an hour before we have the final closing session. So I hope you'll stay around for the closing session, and the highlight of which is going to be a couple of videos telling everyone about the conferences next year. But in closing, I would just like to say a very big thank you to all of the members of the TDWG executive. So this is my swan song. I will be finishing up. I've done my term, and will be finishing up as the chair at the end of the year. And it's been a great, a fabulous learning experience, a great privilege to work with all of you all around the world over a couple of years, and the 2 years prior as deputy chair with Deb. It's been fabulous. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for your support, everyone in the executive, and for being a fabulous group of people to hang out with every 2 weeks and spend time with and chat. And we've got a really lovely executive community, and I really would encourage you to join it if you have an interest in doing so, because it's a very friendly and vibrant group of people. So from me, thank you very much. Thank you for attending the session, and I think I'll give you 4 extra minutes for lunchtime, unless there's any last questions that anyone would like to jump up and say. That's it. And that's it. Thank you very much.